Welcome to Community Conversations. I'm Frederick County Executive Jan Gardner, and joining me today is Mike Ramsberg, who's the supervisor in our Department of Public Works Highway Operations Division. Thank you for joining me today, Mike.
You're welcome. It's my pleasure.
Well, we're here today to talk about the new year and the winter season and what that means in terms of keeping the county prepared for snow and ice and really making sure that we get the roads open when we do have a snow event. So can you talk about what the Highway Operations Division does to prepare for winter weather?
Well, the preparation really goes year-round as far as having contracts in place for materials and contractors to plow our roads. We hold a snow rodeo, as you're aware, in the early October time frame to get the drivers back into the hang of what they're going to do and a little experience and preparation in that regard. Getting closer to the storm, the main thing is monitor the weather and make sure we know what's coming. The weather forecasting nowadays can be so specific that it can really help us as far as knowing when to deploy crews.
Well, it is more specific. We get a lot, and the public gets a lot of information about the weather.
Right.
And certainly with the geographic size of Frederick County and the mountains, we can have some parts of the county experience winter weather and other parts experience rain. So I know that you closely keep track of that as well.
Exactly, and we have our maintenance crews broken down into geographic regions, and quite often we'll call crews in the mountainous areas where the elevation might be 1,000, 1,800 feet, and they're getting snow up there, and here in town and in the rest of the lowland, the rest of the county, it's just raining.
Right. So how do you approach a snow event? If we're going to get a few inches of snow, and it's going to be a quick storm, I know that that's very different than when we get a blizzard like we had last year where we got 3 feet of snow. Can you talk about the differences in preparation and about how we sometimes can put down, treat the roads to try to keep the ice from forming?
Mm-hmm. Well, over the last decade, all road agencies have come to the realization that it makes a lot of sense financially and for the safety of the public to pre-treat, to put material down prior to the storm so that cars don't track over top of it and pack it down and bond it to the road. So you put a little bit of salt down prior to the event starting, and that makes cleanup a lot easier, cheaper, and faster. And up until this year, we've done that with granular rock salt. Most everyone's familiar with out on the state highways where they put the liquid anti-skid down, salt brine. And we purchased the equipment, and we're starting that this year on a small basis in the southeastern portion of the county to see how it works. And if it works the way we expect, we hope to expand that over the next couple of years.
Okay. And sometimes it seems they put that down as much as a day in advance. And so what is the time frame of that and the temperature range for that? Because it's my understanding sometimes you can't do that.
Well, that's one of the bad things about putting it down as granular salt. Traffic drives over it and it gets kicked off to the side of the road where it won't do any good at all. If it's put down as a liquid, it's put down in that exact location. The water evaporates and the salt's still there on the road. So as long as there's not rain in the forecast, it can be put down a week in advance.
Wow.
Yeah.
Okay, and does temperature matter?
No, not really, as long as the humidity level isn't too high, because you want that water to evaporate out of it.
Okay, all right, very interesting. So when we have a big storm like we did last year, and I sure hope we don't have another one this year, snow removal can take some time. I think most people are satisfied, and I think our road crews do a great job when we have 2 or 4 or even 6 inches of snow. We get it moved pretty quickly off the road, particularly if it's not a sustained snow event.
Right.
But what happens when we have 3 feet of snow and we have drifting?
Well, the drifting snow and the freezing rain events, they're the most difficult and the most dangerous to deal with. Like you said, the small snows, we talk a lot about the priority road network. As long as it's less than a 6-inch snow, most all the roads are handled in the same manner. The primary roads, the secondaries, and even the subdivision streets are all going to be plowed at about the same rate. Then when we get those heavier snows, we may have to pull trucks off to double up on the main line runs to keep those open. So if you're in a subdivision or a secondary road, it's going to take longer before you see the truck come through.
So what happens, what can people do to help with snow removal? I know we ask people to move their cars into their driveways or off the road, particularly in cul-de-sacs. How does that impact snow removal?
That's the biggest problem with vehicles being parked. We don't have too much trouble on the roads themselves, but a lot of people will park vehicles in the cul-de-sac, and that makes it much more difficult for the driver to get in and operate it, especially if you have a bigger snow. People think that maybe you should put the snow here or put it there. If you have 6 inches of snow or more, even with that big truck, if you're plowing in a circle, sometimes the snow will dictate where you can put it. You just can't control it with a blade. It's not like you have a tractor or a front end loader that you can pick it up and scoop it and move it. With the blade on the truck, you're pushing it off to the side. So and that goes along with something we were talking about earlier. We get a lot of complaints about driveways being plowed shut. You have that angled blade, it's taking it from the left to the right. It's not like the driver can make the snow disappear or take it past each driveway. It goes from the center of the road to the edge of the road, and it's going to roll back into the driveways.
Well, I think it's very important for people to move their cars off the road and to try, when they do the snow removal in their own driveways, to not put the snow into the roadway,
Right.
which I have seen places, and really this is with commercial contractors generally, where they've cleared out a parking lot and really piled a lot of snow into the middle of a road that was otherwise already plowed open, and they really put the snow out there and closed the road.
Exactly.
I saw that during the blizzard last year, and I found it somewhat unbelievable, because it might be a while before a plow was going to come back to open up that road.
Right, and in the meantime, that creates quite a traffic hazard.
It does, because it's unexpected. So people are driving a certain speed, and
Right.
there's this big pile of snow in front of them. So I think those are key points for people to get their cars off the road, to try to put the snow on their own property, on the side of their driveways to the extent possible. I know people with small yards have a greater problem with that. But the more snow you put out into the road, the harder it is for us to keep that roadway open. So can you discuss a little bit about which roads are a priority? I know when we have a major snowstorm, we're going to try to keep major arteries open first. How do we determine what roads we're going to open first?
There is a list and there is a map. If you go to the Frederick County website to Highway Operations, there's a link there under snow that will show you the roads that are considered priority. And they're mostly main county roads that will link to state roads, or there might be a fire station on them or something else of importance where they need to stay open. And like I said earlier, if it's a normal or small snow, all the roads will be treated pretty much equally. But if it's a heavier snow or there's drifting or freezing rain, then we'll pull trucks off of those secondary runs and double them up on the priority roads to keep those open for sure.
Now, can you talk about coordination with the state and with the municipalities?
We do have an agreement with a couple of municipalities where we actually plow for them if they meet the criteria, where we're already touching that road or have to drive through it anyway, where we keep it open for them during the snow event, and then they reimburse the county at the end of the year. As far as the state goes, they have quite a few trucks. We're in communication with them occasionally during the storm, but for the most part, they're kind of doing their thing and we're doing our thing.
Okay.
We do have a preseason meeting in October where we get everyone from the county that might have anything to do with snow removal, plus State Highway, Frederick City, FCC, and other municipalities, and discuss what our plans are for the upcoming winter, and then we all just have a big group discussion about anything that's new or anyone that has questions or ideas that go back and forth.
One of the other points that I wanted to make is that sometimes, particularly when we have a big snowstorm like the blizzard, people will call and say, well, what happens if somebody has a medical emergency on my street and the road hasn't been plowed yet? So we coordinate with public safety. So can you describe how that works?
On a normal snowstorm, we'll get complaints or requests in our office. If it's a bigger snowstorm, they'll set up a phone bank at public safety, and where they have a lot more operators that can take those calls. But if it's an emergency, like you described, they should call 911 so that they can dispatch an ambulance, and then the emergency services people will get directly in touch with us so that we can coordinate a snow plow to go out with the ambulance.
Yeah, so in an emergency, we will send a snowplow out with an ambulance to get somebody who has a critical emergency need.
Right. The problem was last year during the big snow, there were more requests than there were snowplows.
Yes. And we also had, last year we had the National Guard out to help too.
Yes.
And so, and they usually bring in some big equipment that can help us to assist people who are in distress.
Right. They don't have plows, but they have equipment that can travel through heavier snow. Yes.
So what do you think the most important message is for people to know during a snow event?
Monitor the weather. Be aware of the conditions before you leave. If it's bad, consider delaying your trip. But if you do have to go out on the road, the most important thing is slow down. You never know when you're going to come across a patch of black ice, or as you've encountered in the past, whiteout conditions where you just cannot see, and you have to be aware of your surroundings at all times.
Yes. So when we do ask people to stay off the roads, we'd like people to heed that warning. It does hamper snow removal if we're spending time trying to rescue people who were stranded.
Right.
And sometimes people are out there just because they want to drive around and see what's happening, look at the snow, and other people, you know, need to go to work.
Right.
But certainly we understand that. But we do ask people to think about it, and if they have a job where they have to go to work, to maybe make some plans that put them closer to where they work for that period of time.
Plan ahead so you're already there. Yes. And another difficulty with the new technology, it seems like most everyone has a four-wheel drive or an all-wheel drive or a front-wheel drive vehicle, and they can get enough traction to go in those conditions, but if it's newer and they're not familiar with it, it's much more difficult to maintain once you're moving or to stop when you're in those types of conditions.
Yeah, well, that's true. There's not a lot of practice driving those vehicles. So we are going to try to make sure that we provide information to citizens who want to know about the status of snow removal. We'll do that through our county webpage, through a phone number, and through social media. So when and if we have a big event this year, we'll try to let people know the status of the storm, whether they should be out or not, and the status of the snow removal operation. I really do want to take this opportunity to thank you and to thank your entire team for the great job that you do out there to keep the roads open and the public safe. It is a big task, and people do stay at work for days on end sometimes. I think last year it was a long week of snow removal, and I really do appreciate the good work that you and all your employees do.
Thank you.
So, thank you for joining us for this edition of Community Conversations. We want you to know that we're ready and prepared for winter weather, and we do need your help and assistance. So keep your cars off the road, plan ahead, and make sure that you're aware of what's happening in the weather. Thank you for joining us.